guys. Welcome to Scripture Shared. This is week 6, and we are going to be talking about Jacob this week. And so we start off with the story of when Jacob first meets Rachel. He sees her at a well, and they are waiting for the stone to be rolled away from the well. There's a couple of shepherds that are there, and in order to water all of their animals, they need the stone rolled away. And so these shepherds are like, we're just waiting for some other people to get here because it's so heavy. And then Jacob sees Rachel and he rolls the stone away himself.
Of course he does.
Okay, so I want to ask you, when you first met Brandy, do you think you could have rolled a stone away by yourself that normally took like 5 men?
Easy. Easy. You want to impress the girl. That's exactly what he's doing.
That is exactly what he's
Yeah.
doing. Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, theirs from the beginning is like a true love story. I mean, he immediately is besotted with her. He agrees to work 14 years for her. But there's kind of downsides, right? Like the fact that she is his true love affects everyone around them.
Yeah. It's great to be chosen.
Right.
Except when you're the person who wasn't chosen.
Right.
Right. And so these other women in his life, right?
Especially Leah, who he is married to first.
That's right. Exactly. Will bear the consequences of that. She will always feel scorned. She will always feel second best. And her kids will feel that way too. Like Rachel's children, Joseph and Benjamin, Jacob will be very clear. These are my favorites. Right. And they will end up being the most successful tribes of Israel.
Right. And then because of that, all of the other kids like Reuben and all of Judah and all of those brothers, like they react in a natural human way to not being the chosen ones.
I mean, it's a really good glimpse into family systems.
It is.
Right? When you could play favorites, just know there are going to be consequences.
Right.
Right? I mean, if anyone has ever felt that in their family where you go, oh, I'm not mommy and daddy's favorite, or they heaped blessings on that one but neglected me, that really that gets into the family, right? And we totally see this. If you just look at Jacob's family just as a family like our families, you see what that does to people.
Right. So they're going to pay for it for generations. Okay. So let's talk about this. Laban's deception of Jacob. The deceiver has become the deceived.
Yes.
Right? He is the one that deceives Esau and his father, and he takes away the blessing, and all of a sudden he is deceived, but he's outraged by it.
Yes.
Like it's like it doesn't make sense to him that something that he has done could ever happen to him.
Yeah. The con artist got conned.
Yeah.
And you read the text and you go, well, didn't you see this coming? You did this to your own brother Esau. Why didn't you see this coming? So like for Jacob, it's got to be like looking in a mirror.
Yeah.
I have been the deceiver, always one-upping other people at their own expense my entire life. Now it happens to me. He ends up seeing his own shadow side reflected back at him.
Do you even think he sees it as deception, what he did, though? Like, I think sometimes it can be hard to recognize sin. Like, we will see things in other people that aggravate us so much, or we are quick to accuse them of sin, and we're guilty of the same thing, and we don't see it. Like, I think Jacob, maybe at best, he thought he was selfish. He saw something he wanted. He went for it. He took it. But I don't know that because he's so outraged by this deception of Laban's. It's like, it reminds me, of course, of like when in Matthew it talks about like you have to take the log out of your own eye before you remove the splinter from someone else. But like we don't see the log. All we see is the splinter. Like all Jacob saw is that Laban had tried to deceive him. He didn't see what he had done at this point in his journey, right?
I think about all the times I'm late to meetings. And first I think about how much I hate it when other people are late to meetings.
And when they come in with like a Starbucks.
Oh, absolutely.
Like they stopped on the way and then they were late. It's the worst.
Yes, you're fighting for 10 minutes late. You got Starbucks. We know where you were.
Right.
And I just hate that. It drives me up the wall and it makes me think, okay, you don't take me seriously. You don't take anyone here seriously. Next meeting I show up to, I'm late.
Right.
I'm late. Why?
But you don't see it.
No, of course not. I see it. This is one of the gifts of Bible study. I see it now.
Right.
But when I'm being a jerk in the moment, no, I don't see it.
Yeah, I was thinking about this last night. I think for me, it is the trait that grates the most on me about other people is selfishness. When somebody puts themselves first, when they think about themselves before a group of people, and it almost undoes me. And then I will find myself convicted of the same thing.
Hmm.
Like I just chose myself first or my own family or whatever. But it's so hard to see that. Like you just go
Yeah.
about your day and it's so easy to look around and like be like, I cannot believe how selfish she is and not see it in yourself.
So maybe we need those mirrors.
Right,
Like
right.
we need a Laban who can kind of show us these parts of ourselves that we don't see, right? I mean, you know,
We
that's
just
what we
don't want
hope.
it to be as painful
That's
as
right.
what Jacob went
And
through.
you want someone to go into the New Testament. We want someone to speak the truth and love to us.
Right.
We want someone who's not going to actually hurt us, but actually call us to our higher selves. But at the end of the day, we need that mirror because you're right, Jacob. You're right. I don't. Jacob probably doesn't see himself as the con artist he really is until he sees it reflected back at him.
Okay, so let's talk about moving a little bit forward from that. He leaves Laban and he's making his way back to Esau for this reconciliation. Well, he hopes it's a reconciliation. He doesn't even know what it is. It's just an owning up at this
Yeah,
point,
yeah, he's
right?
terrified.
And he has this overnight experience where he sends everyone ahead across the river. He is all alone and he wrestles with God.
Mm,
And I think it's so interesting because the scripture talks about how Jacob would not let go. He wrestled all night. When God renames him, he says, "You have wrestled with God and man and prevailed," like kind of won.
yeah,
So, but it's God, right? Like God could
yeah,
win.
yeah.
Why didn't God win?
I mean, God had to throw in the towel.
Hmm,
Like this is God we're talking about.
mhm.
God had to, at least I believe,
Right.
God
Because God
chose.
chose, yeah.
Yeah, God chose to to let him win. I just I see this as an image of what it looks like for us to wrestle with God. Like we want to hold on to our own way, our own plans,
Mhm.
um, our own sense of rightness, and God lets us do it.
Yeah.
Right? God doesn't control us,
Right.
which is an act of love.
Right, absolutely. God doesn't force God's will on us. We have free will. There's not determinism where everything is decided beforehand. I think about times in my life when I have just known something, like I know God is calling me to something or telling me something, and I sort of know it's inevitable. Like, this is where my life is going. This is what God is making a way for. And I just fight so hard against it.
Mm,
And it's like, Jacob, like, why do we do that when we know that God can win and is going to win? Like, when we know that's sort of the eventual thing, like, why do we fight so hard? And I just think it's this sense of like control. Like, we just want to hold on so tightly to what we want because I can do it better,
that's
right?
right. That's right. I mean that need for control is so dominant. It's dominant in my life
Right.
too. And God's willing to work with us. Like I see that in the wrestling with Jacob story. God is willing to even let us feel like we have control in a way, uh, because the only other option is for God to control
Right.
us, and God chooses that path of self emptying for God to love us.
And I also think God uses the wrestling, right? So with Jacob, like God touches Jacob's hip, strikes his hip, and he is scarred. So like we walk away from, we pay the consequences of the wrestling instead of aligning ourselves with God. There are sometimes things that are harder in our lives because we have pushed back against God or because we have turned away. But God lets us continue to walk with those and like learn from those and let them mark us. But I think if we wanted to give in, God of course would like God could have and would have overpowered had God not seen Jacob fighting so hard.
Hmm. And hopefully Jacob will look back on that limp because it's going to bother him for the rest of his life, and he's going to remember that time when I wrestled with God and it changed everything for me.
Yeah.
Um, we think that the moments that we remember the most are the good times and happy times,
Hmm.
when it's actually the times we remember the most are the times of struggle,
Right.
where we wrestled and we figured it out, and God was there with us all along the way. It's the struggle we remember,
Right.
and we just believe God is with us in it all.
Okay, so speaking of God being with us in it all, as we close out this week, we see Jacob finally renews this covenant with God, right? Remember, Jacob has the covenant with God. It's the Abrahamic covenant. It's not a new one, but it's renewed with him during the dream.
Hmm.
And that is the point where he's like, if you do this, then I'll respond this way. I
Yeah.
mean, it's almost like Jacob wants to be making the covenant with God.
Yeah. Jacob's trying to con God.
Yeah, he's like, I
Yeah.
see your
Oh,
covenant and
yeah.
I match you
Hmm.
with this. Okay. And so, but now we have this point where like he has been humbled. Like he has had to work for over 20 years for Laban. He has reconciled with his brother. He's wrestled with God. And then this is right before Rachel gives birth to Benjamin and she passes away. And God comes back and says, the God of your ancestor Abraham, renew this covenant with you.
Hmm.
And Jacob's response is not even any words. He just builds an altar,
That's right.
right, in that place. What did it take to get there?
It
Like,
takes it takes a journey.
yeah.
It takes a journey. I mean, for me, that's the big idea of all of our scriptures today.
Mm-hmm.
We see Jacob's journey of faith unfold before us. It's our journey of faith, right? We hopefully we all reach this point where we realize we can either have our anxiety or we can surrender.
Mm-hmm.
That's really the choices we have. We can fight for control, the control that we really don't even have in life, or just go, you know what, I'm not in charge of any of this, and turn to trust. And so we see that journey play out. We see Jacob struggle with that his entire life. And finally he gets there. We actually see him get there. That's the arc of the journey of faith.
Yeah, I think it's like he lets himself be shaped by all of these things and he lets them turn him to God. Like he could have turned away, he could have turned and said, I'm going to control all this on my own, I'm going to manage it. Not everything has worked out like I thought it would. But instead, he takes this journey and he turns at each point to God.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that is the challenge for us, right? Like when we're going through hard things, when we're going through good things, where are we turning to? Like what are we letting be our final stopping point? Is it surrender to God, or is it just like tightening ourselves with like more and more control?
Yeah. Thank you.
This is great.
This has been fun. Thank y'all for joining us. Thank you for another great week of scripture shared. Thanks for studying the Bible in community. It really does pay off, as you can see. See you next time.